I kicked down the door. Inside, laughter and carols filled the room, while outside my daughter sat in the snow, lips purple, locked out by the very people who claimed to love her. What happened next made them scream and exposed a truth that would shatter their perfect Christmas forever. Before we continue this incredible story, let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel, because tomorrow we have another inspiring story you won't want to miss. My daughter, Rose, sat outside in the snow in nothing but thin Christmas pajamas. Her lips were purple, her arms wrapped around her body, her teeth chattering like dry leaves in the wind. She had been left there while inside the house. Her husband, Randall, and his family gathered around the tree, opening presents in warmth and comfort. Music drifted from the living room, carols blending with the crackle of fire. They celebrated while my daughter nearly froze to death 10 feet from their door. I wrapped her in my coat, felt the ice through her skin, heard her whisper that she thought she might die. That was the moment something inside me snapped. I wasn't arriving to beg for acceptance or argue about mistakes. I came as a father who had seen enough. What happened next made them scream, and it changed everything. By the end of that Christmas day, their carefully constructed world of control and cruelty would collapse, and my daughter would finally walk free. Rudy Hudson knows the weight of promises and the rhythm of schedules. 40 years on the railroad in Pennsylvania taught him to show up early, check bolts twice, and never ignore a rattle. He still lives in the White House where he and Martha raised Rose. The porch steps creak, the apple tree leans toward the sun, and the kitchen clock runs 5 minutes fast because he'd rather be ready than late. Since Martha passed, rituals hold him together. Coffee at dawn, tools put away, a weekly polish of the brass bell he rang every Christmas Eve. Holidays are sacred. Respect is earned by showing up, not by titles. Love looks like steady work, not speeches. He has never confused control with care. On Sunday mornings, he walks the old right-of-way behind the high school and talks to Martha in the quiet, telling her what he's fixing and what he's grateful for. He keeps her wedding ring in a dish by the sink and touches it when decisions need courage. At Christmas, he lights the porch lantern at dusk because Rose once said it felt like home, guiding her in. The day Rose announced her engagement, Rudy heard joy braided with static. She glowed, yet kept checking her phone, answering texts with nervous laughs. "His name is Randall," she said. "Commercial real estate. He takes care of everything, so I don't have to worry." The phrase snagged, "he takes care of everything," might mean Rose doesn't decide anything. Rudy asked to meet him. "Soon," she said. Busy turned into invisible. When planning began, gravity shifted to Randall's parents in Westbridge. Olive talked about tradition as if it were a blade. Irving issued opinions like verdicts. Olive praised proper wives who kept quiet households. Irving joked that a man is only as respected as his ability to keep order. The guest list shrank on Rose's side and expanded on Randall's. "Intimate," Olive said, meaning controlled. At the cake tasting, the smallest moment told the biggest story. Rose lifted a fork with frosting toward Randall's mouth. He caught her wrist before icing touched his suit. "Careful." "This jacket costs more than most people make in a month," he said, half smile, full warning. Rose apologized. Rudy laughed with the room, then drove home, gripping the wheel, wondering why a joke felt like a rule. At the rehearsal dinner, Olive toasted standards, calendars, curated menus, seating that produced the right conversations. Irving added a line about women who know their place. Rudy told himself love could sand sharp edges. He promised himself to intervene. After the vows, the geography of Rose's life shifted inch by inch. Thanksgiving in Westbridge revealed the new map. Rose cooked by Martha's recipes, measuring spices by scent and memory. Olive sat at the head of the table with a pencil-thin critique for every dish. Too much cumin. Gravy should be silk, not satin. Real households keep a binder of standards so results don't vary. Irving nodded. Consistency is love. Randall corrected details in Rose's stories as if truth were a product he owned. Rudy watched his daughter's shoulders tilt inward. Later, washing dishes, Rose joked the binder might be useful. The joke didn't reach her eyes. Later, as he dried the last glass, he noticed Rose's new habit of shrinking her sentences, rounding off her opinions so they wouldn't catch. He drove back to Pennsylvania through early snow, replaying the meal like a conductor listening for a hidden knock in the rails, and every replay made the small humiliations louder. Work emergencies multiplied. Every holiday had a reason Randall couldn't visit Rudy's house. Deadlines, clients, their new traditions. Rose's friends texted less and visited because invitations always landed on days Randall labeled family time. The book club faded. Saturday hikes disappeared. The bright scarf Rose loved gathered dust because Olive preferred neutrals. Her laugh thinned. Calls with Rudy grew short. "I'm fine," became the line, followed by fixes she'd try next time. When she did open up, she described her own failings in the language of standards. "I keep missing little things." Rudy recognized the slow drift of a track out of alignment, each day passable, strain measurable to anyone who reads Steel. The Morrisons' world came with a rulebook-stamped tradition. Dress was a message, not a choice. Olive expected neutrals, tailored lines, quiet shoes. Tone mattered more than content. Questions should sound like agreement. Scheduling was a hierarchy. Randall's calendar concrete, Rose's calendar sand. Household management meant obedience with polish. Pantry labels and approved lists. Recipes as scripts. Discipline rebranded as memorable lessons. Breeding, Olive's favorite word, served as license to judge. It was coercive control, wearing grandmother's pearls, called standards when it separated Rose from her people, and family when it meant surveillance of tone, time, and taste. Rudy knew when a system masked failure instead of fixing it. He saw the shame creep. It began with apologies for small spills, then for telling a story out of turn. It took the shape of Rose asking permission to laugh and thanking people for not interrupting. It murmured in the way she called her hobbies indulgences. It lived in the tidy binder labeled household standards and in the habit of checking with Olive before inviting anyone. He heard contested love in her voice, loyalty to a man who promised order, fear of never being enough for the rulebook his family enforced. Dread settled in his chest the way winter settles into rail ties, slow, deep, undeniable. He argued with himself at night. Was he old-fashioned, threatened by a different style, or was this a system that turned affection into approval ratings and mistakes into evidence for punishment? At Martha's table with coffee and a shopping pad, he listed moments and looked for a line. The line grew clear. The cake incident. The binder. The toasts about women who know their place. The way Rose's stories were corrected and her invitations screened. He underlined the sentence every time. Control is not care. As winter came, Rudy touched the touchstones that steadied him. He visited the footbridge where he and Martha watched freight cars and reminded himself momentum matters only if it points the right way. He checked the emergency kit in his truck and wrote Rose's address on a card above the visor. He kept the tank half full. He learned the quickest route to Westbridge and the alternate if ice closed the main road. Quiet preparations from a man who hoped he was wrong and refused to be unready if he was right. Then Rose called, breath shaking, whispering about a plate thrown over toast and a bathroom door locked against shouting. The debate ended. Rudy offered to come, then faltered. Tied to a meeting he thought would secure their futures, the kind of bargain men make when fear is new and the problem begs underestimation. The shame of that hesitation settled deep. He promised there would not be a second one. When the calendar shifted and the road opened, he chose differently. He packed a scarf lined with Martha's warmth, added a biography about a woman who built her own path, and tuned the truck like a man preparing to cross a pass. He didn't announce he was coming. He decided to show up. Under the hum of the heater and the certainty of miles, he rehearsed calm sentences that could cut through charm. Love is not a ledger. Silence is not respect. And lessons that risk a life are not lessons at all. He pictured stepping into a warm room that looked perfect and prepared to strip the perfection down to truth, even if it meant breaking the frame that held it. One conviction clicked like steel on steel. Whatever waited behind that door, coercive tradition would not get the last word. Rose's call came like a hand on a live wire. She had locked herself in the hall bathroom, voice pressed thin to keep from carrying through the vents. Rudy leaned against his kitchen counter in Pennsylvania, memorizing each syllable the way he'd listen for a hairline crack in rail. "Tell me from the beginning," he said, steady and soft. Rose inhaled, then the spill tumbled out. She burned toast, trying to copy Olive's preferred shade for breakfast. Randall came in, saw the plate, threw it against the sink so hard it spidered into white shards. He called her useless, said she embarrassed him. She ran to the bathroom to breathe. Through the fan grill, she heard Olive instructing from the kitchen that Rose must learn proper household management. Irving's television voice boomed commentary on football and wives who keep order. Rudy pictured his daughter on the tile floor, knees tucked, hands shaking, listening to judgments travel through ductwork like cold air. He kept his questions simple, the way he would on a bad weather inspection. "Are you hurt?" "No, just shaken." "Any bruises?" "No, only the plate." "Can you lock the door?" "I did." "Are you wearing shoes?" "No, pajamas, house socks." He asked timestamps because time tells risk. When did he throw the plate? 10 minutes ago. Where is he now? In the living room with Irving, pretending nothing happened. Where is Olive? Moving between kitchen and couches, commenting. Rose whispered that she could feel the house tilting against her, standards stacked like weights on her chest. He made his voice a low rail hum. "Name 3 facts. You are safe behind the lock. You are breathing. I hear you." She breathed with him, in sets of 4, then told him the part that felt worse than the plate. Randall had told her to apologize to Olive for buying cheap bread that scorches. Rudy's jaw worked. He asked about the door hinges, whether the bathroom window had paint seals or could open, because practicality steadies panic. "Window sticks when it's cold," she said, "but the lock is solid." He asked what she needed. The answer fell out before she could edit it. "Come for Christmas, please. I need you here." The sentence trembled, but the need inside it was clear as a signal flag. Rudy's mind split the way minds do under pressure. One part reached for his coat, keys, and the route he already knew by mile marker. The other part raised the meeting he had promised to keep on December 23rd, the Peterson contract that could lock in months of work. He heard himself tell Rose the worst sentence of his year. "I wish I could, sweetheart. I have the Peterson meeting on the 23rd, and if this deal goes through." Silence expanded between them, large and bright like a flare. It lit both the reason and the failure. Rose's breath steadied in the quiet. Her tone cooled, professional, learned. "I understand. You're busy." He tried to fix it as the words left him, tried to build a bridge from obligation back to duty. "After Christmas, when things settle, we can plan a visit," he said, hating each syllable. From downstairs came Irving's laugh, television crowd noise rising with it. Randall called her name like a command. "I have to go," she said. The line clicked to a dial tone that sounded like a warning no one else could hear. The wrongness flooded Rudy's house as soon as the call ended. The clock above the stove ticked too loud. Wind worried the panes. He set his coffee down and forgot to drink it. He walked from sink to front window and back, each loop a replay of the last hour. The Peterson meeting stood there like an alibi that had already fallen apart. He pictured a conference table, renderings and cost curves, handshakes that meant security. He set that image beside the one he could not shake. Rose on a bathroom floor counting her breaths, while strangers in her home critiqued her existence as if it were a menu. He went to the mantel, touched Martha's ring in the little dish to borrow nerve. Martha would have spoken, the thought said, not whispered. He wanted to call back with the sentence he should have said first. I'm coming now. The phone stayed heavy and still. Night did not pass so much as grind. Rudy checked each lock as if a bolt could hold off regret. He banked the fire, then watched embers fall and thought of the cake knife catching light at the wedding, the quick clamp of Randall's fingers on Rose's wrist. He saw the way she apologized then, small and fast. He heard Olive's Thanksgiving voice judging cumin, grating gravy, replacing conversation with correction. He measured himself against those moments and came up short. The house kept sounding out his failure in little noises. The furnace starting, tree limbs scraping, the kitchen clock stepping from 10:47 to 10:48 like an accusation. He lay down and got up. He stood at the window and saw only his reflection and the porch light he had promised to keep lit for Rose. Somewhere east, snow ran its fingers across New England roofs. He did the only thing that makes sense when a system shakes. He made ready. He filled the truck's tank at midnight. He checked the emergency blanket and the tire kit and the charger. He wrote Rose's address in block letters and slid it under the visor as if muscle memory could keep him from hesitating again. When he returned, he left his keys on the table where he could see them from the bed. Sleep came in inches and left with a jerk. The single thought that met him each time his eyes opened was a sentence he had not allowed himself to say out loud. Your meeting is not your daughter. At 3 a.m, he sat on the edge of the bed and felt the truth settle as simply as gravity. He did not need to engineer a speech. He needed to show up. He watched the windows go from black to steel to the faintest ribbon of pale, and with the first light, he made a promise to Martha's ring and to the empty hallway and to the woman behind a bathroom lock in a house that kept teaching her lessons. He would not choose the wrong answer twice. The phone rang at mid-morning while Rudy rinsed a clean cup and stared through the kitchen window at a sky the color of tin. He expected a robocall or another careful hello from his daughter. Instead, a composed office voice clicked in. Mr. Hudson, this is Claire from Peterson Construction, calling about your meeting on the 23rd. He straightened from habit. Yes, of course. I am sorry, she said. We need to postpone. Mr. Peterson's mother was admitted last night. Family emergency. We will regroup after the holidays. The word emergency struck with a strange mercy. Understood, he said, and meant it. Please give him my regards. The call ended. The house went quiet again, only the hum of the refrigerator and the faint tick of the wall clock. A window had opened, the one he should have broken open himself the night before. He set the cup down, reached for the road atlas, and felt his pulse settle into a working rhythm. He spread the atlas on Martha's old table, the one with a faint scorch from her first pie lesson with Rose. Pencil in hand, he traced Interstate 80 to Scranton, then 84 across Connecticut, then south into Westbridge. He penciled alternates the way he once sketched sidings for freight, Route 33 if 80 jammed, a state spur if 84 slowed near Hartford. He marked fuel stops, restrooms, and a margin for weather because roads and Decembers both punished wishful thinking. Then he drove to town. Action steadied him. In the winter shop, soft light fell over rows of wool. He looked for warmth that would not shout, something that said, I see you and want you warm. His fingers found a deep blue scarf stitched with silver thread, the exact color that pulls light into Rose's eyes. He rubbed the weave between thumb and forefinger. Not fashion. Shelter. He bought it and asked for plain paper, blue with a single ribbon. In the bookstore, he walked past glossy bestsellers to the quiet stack of biographies. A spine caught him. Julia Morgan, architect. a woman who designed on her own terms when doors were closed to her. He read a page, standing up, and felt the idea form. Agency can be taught. He bought the book and asked the clerk for a simple card. Back home, he laid both gifts on the table, side by side like tools. Competence took over in the garage. He raised the hood and ran the old checklist the railroad had written into his hands. Oil clear and full, coolant topped, belts clean, battery posts tight, tire pressure to spec and tread sound. He slid the emergency kit forward. Flashlight, spare batteries, jumper cables, first aid, 2 wool blankets, a folding shovel, a bag of sand for traction. He added another phone charger, a short length of paracord, and a tin of road salt. He washed the windshield inside and out and swapped the driver's side wiper that had begun to chatter. The forecast on the weather band promised light snow at dawn, wind by noon, the temperature falling like a hammer. He set the truck's heater to the defroster and listened to the fan whir clean. In the kitchen, he filled a thermos with strong coffee and set another beside it for hot water. He packed granola, apples, and 2 turkey sandwiches wrapped tight in wax paper. He wrote Rose's address on a sticky note and pressed it to the dash, even though he could drive the last mile by memory. Then he wrapped the scarf and the book. To Rose, he wrote, "Design your life. Love. Dad." He tucked the card inside the book jacket so she would find it later, not as a speech, but as a quiet hand on her shoulder. Evening came early, as if pulled down by the weight of the week. He placed the gifts on Martha's hope chest and took the photo of Martha and Rose at college graduation from the mantel. The paper felt warm in his hand, the corners worn from years of being lifted, looked at, and put back. He slipped it into his shirt pocket, where it would ride against his heart. The question pressed in: call ahead, or do not. He walked the kitchen twice just to hear the old floor answer his steps. If he called, Rose might try to protect him from a scene. She might say, "We will figure it out later," or worse, say Randall is here, and it is not a good time. Love that arrives by appointment is not the kind she needed. He pictured her opening the door at the sound of his knock, shock, relief, and maybe a little shame that would dissolve when she saw no judgment in his face. Surprise was not theater. It was proof. It said, "I came because you matter, not because you scheduled me." He set the alarm for 5:30, placed his wallet, keys, and a folded list beside the phone, and poured the coffee into the thermos so it would cool enough to seal. Doubt tried one more time as the dark pressed flat against the windows. He answered it with movement. He checked door latches, turned the thermostat down 2 degrees, banked the fire to a soft, steady glow. He stepped onto the porch and watched thin flakes drift in the light like ash. Cold air sharpened his focus. Inside again, he wrote a short note to Mrs. Martinez to say he would be gone overnight and slid it under her door. He laid out his coat, scarf, watch cap, and gloves like tools on a bench. In the bedroom, he placed his boots by the chair with the laces opened wide. He put the wrapped gifts in a grocery bag and set the bag by the door with his overnight kit. He pulled Martha's photo from his pocket, looked at the 2 smiles at the center of his life, and spoke a single line into the quiet. "I am going to get our girl." The words felt like a report and a promise at once. He set his phone to Do Not Disturb, flipped it face down, and turned off the lamp. The house settled. Sleep came in shallow pools, but it came. When the alarm cut the dark, he swung his feet to the rug and stood without thinking. Thermos in the bag, gifts in the bag, wallet in his pocket, photo over his heart. He locked the door behind him and stood for a breath on the porch. The snow was thin and dry, the kind that whispers under tires. He started the truck and let the heater push warm air across the glass. The dash clock read 5:41. He pulled onto the road, felt the tires find their line, and pointed the hood toward Westbridge. Love as action. Love as miles. Love arriving without permission, because permission had never been the problem. The highway rose and fell as Rudy crossed into Massachusetts. Snow ticked against the windshield between steady sweeps of the wipers. The radio cut through a carol. Western Massachusetts at 10 degrees. Limit unnecessary travel. He pictured Rose at 6, hands in Martha's scarf, blowing fog like a dragon. He gripped the wheel harder and held the truck in the cleanest groove the plows had carved. Holiday traffic moved like a tired animal. He had driven through worse for less reason. Exit signs for Westbridge surfaced. He eased onto Maple Street where porch lights burned daytime gold. Randall's BMW sat cocked in the driveway. An older dealer plate sedan crouched behind it. Company, or Olive and Irving, the in-laws he knew by the shape they made in Rose's stories. He parked across the street, left the truck running, and pocketed the gifts. Breath fogged as he crossed. Snow squeaked under his boots. The picture cracked. A shape hunched by the snowbank at the edge of the drive. At first, a forgotten ornament, then a person too still. His body moved before thought did. Rose sat with her back to the drift, knees drawn up, arms wrapped tight. A fine frost glazed her hair. Thin pajamas clung to her calves, bare ankles like porcelain. No coat. Her lips were blue-violet, and her eyes slid past him. "Dad," she said, the syllable breaking and falling to the snow. Rudy stripped off his coat and wrapped it around her. He lifted her carefully, half carrying to the passenger side. The truck's heater poured warm air. He settled her into the seat, leaned the back, and tore open the emergency blanket. He cocooned her, cranked the fan to high, and aimed the vents at her hands and feet. He rubbed her fingers between his palms, slow and firm. "Can you feel this, Rose?" "Pins and needles," she whispered. "It hurts, then it doesn't, then it hurts again." He pressed a thumbnail to each nail and watched pink creep back. "What day is it?" "Christmas," she said. "Where are you?" "Westbridge. Your truck." Her teeth chattered. He kept rubbing, warming. "What happened?" Her eyes tracked toward the house, windows bright with a life that had not noticed the cold. "I spilled coffee on Olive's rug," she said, voice thin. "Randall said I ruin everything. He told me to go outside and think about being careful. He locked the door." "How long?" 4 hours, I think. I knocked. Olive said I was disturbing their Christmas and to stop making a scene." The words landed flat. Rudy felt the simple machine of his anger come alive, heat governed and rising. He tucked the blanket under her chin and pressed his palm to her cheek. "No one deserves this," he said, plain as a physical law. "I thought it was a lesson," she breathed. "A rug is an object. You are my daughter. There will be no more lessons like this." She nodded once. He checked her feet. Pajama cuffs were wet and rimed. He slipped off his wool socks and pulled them over her toes, then angled the vents down. Color crept along her ears. The violent shiver softened. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I made such a mess." "You have nothing to apologize for," he said. "I kept thinking he would open the door, that he would see it was too cold." Then they started passing gifts, and it got quieter and farther away. "I thought maybe I deserved it for being clumsy." "You deserved heat, food, and the respect of a closed mouth," he said. The heater roared. Outside, wind dragged a ribbon of snow across the driveway. Through the windshield, the house glowed in curated peace. The contrast clarified everything. He looked at her hands again. The modeling retreated. The nails answered faster. The line from anger to action drew itself clean and bright. "Stay in the truck," he said, tightening the blanket. "Keep your hands by the vents. I'll be right back." Her fingers caught his sleeve. "Dad, please don't make it worse." "I have to live with them." "No," he said, calm as a schedule you can trust. "You don't." He could almost hear Martha saying, "Keep your head and keep moving," and he did. She tried to help and failed, and he told her trying was enough for now. If you feel dizzy, say so, he told her. If your fingers burn, that's good. She nodded again, this time with intention, and lifted her hands closer to the vents on her own. Through the glass, he caught silhouettes crossing the living room, the tilt of champagne flutes, the lazy lift of a hand tossing ribbon into a bag. The scene was ordinary in every way, except the one that mattered. He let the ordinariness harden his resolve. Ordinary had nearly killed his daughter. He touched the door handle and felt the cold bite through his skin, a clean reminder. Warmth belonged with Rose. Whatever heat was left inside that house could wait until she was safe. He climbed the steps. Rudy climbed the steps and knocked once, knuckles sharp against the wood. Music and laughter softened. Footsteps crossed the foyer. The door opened on Randall with a champagne flute and a host's smile polished to a shine. His eyes flicked down the snow on Rudy's shoulders, then back up to the posture of welcome. Mr. Hudson, what a wonderful surprise. He tilted his glass as if toasting a guest who had RSVP'd weeks ago. Rose didn't mention you were coming. She couldn't. You locked her outside. Randall's smile held, then tightened. I think you've misunderstood. She was upset, and a little fresh air helps people calm down. We were just about to call her back in. He angled his body, filling the doorway like a maitre d' barring a table. Fresh air. In this weather. It's invigorating, he said, trying a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. Holiday mornings get chaotic. Accidents happen. We're managing it. Rudy looked past him at the hall mirror, catching the tree's reflection. Ornaments flashed red and gold. Voices hummed. He brought his focus back to Randall and spoke evenly. In 10 degrees, in pajamas, for 4 hours. Randall's eyelids flickered. Lessons must be memorable. We're a family of standards. Move, Rudy said. You're being unreasonable. This is my home. Lower your voice and we can discuss. The doorframe took the kick like a warning before it splintered. Wood cracked, loud and simple. The latch tore free and the door slammed back into the wall, picture frames rattling. The tree lights wavered. Randall stumbled, nearly spilling champagne, his charm stripping away like thin paint. Rudy stepped through the threshold. Heat met the frozen air and rolled across the foyer. He scanned the room the way he had scanned a damaged span. Points of stress, lines of force, exits. Olive turned from the fireplace, pearls bright against a winter sweater. Irving rose halfway from a leather chair, jaw tight. Guests froze with utensils halfway to mouths. On the coffee table, a folded newspaper about traditions looked suddenly like a verdict. How dare you break in, Olive said, voice pitched to authority. You have no idea what you're doing. I have a perfect idea. My daughter's in my truck with numb fingers and lips the color of bruised plums. The facts don't need volume. Irving sniffed. She disrespected a priceless rug. Consequences teach order. In my day, wives understood that. 10 degrees, Rudy said. Wet fabric conducts heat away 25 times faster than air. After 30 minutes, pain gives way to numbness. After 2 hours, tissue damage. At 4 hours, you gamble on permanent loss. You saw her clothes and closed the door anyway. Randall found his voice. We didn't lock anything. She stepped out to gather herself. The door probably drifted shut. Say it plain, Rudy said. Did you intend to keep her out? Everyone looked at Randall. His mouth opened, then closed. Olive stepped in. She needed a lesson. We've been too lenient. She breaks things. That rug is an heirloom. A rug is an object. Rose is a person. You all watched the person freeze over an object. We watched her refuse responsibility, Olive said. Responsibility looks like cleaning the spill, apologizing once and moving on, Rudy replied. Control looks like punishment that endangers life. The difference isn't subtle. Irving puffed up. You don't come into my son's house talking like you run it. This is Massachusetts, not whatever little town you crawled out of. This is a house with a front door that stayed closed on a human being. That's not a town issue. That's a character issue. Bring her in, Randall tried. We'll explain as a family and you can leave. She can't feel her toes. She was slurring when I lifted her, skin mottled. Those are indicators of hypothermia. He glanced at the thermostat glowing on the wall. 72 in here, 10 outside. You made a choice about whose comfort mattered. A guest near the dining archway cleared his throat. Is she truly in pajamas? Rudy nodded. The guest set down his fork. Olive's chin lifted. We will not be humiliated in our own home. She should learn how our family lives. Your family lives by grabbing a bride's wrist at her wedding when frosting threatened a jacket. Your family lives by toasts about keeping wives in line. Your family lives by telling a daughter-in-law that proper wives schedule, speak, and dress to please one man's idea of order. Thanksgiving, you criticized her seasoning. Every call since, you narrowed her world with emergencies and rules. Today, you closed a door. Call it what it is. Randall's jaw clenched. Watch how you talk to my mother. Watch how you treat my daughter. Rudy lowered his voice, forcing everyone to lean toward the truth. You locked her out to break her. Say it. We asked her to reflect, Randall said. You trapped her where reflecting could stop a heart. Through the window, neighbors had drifted onto porches, drawn by the crack of wood. Sound carries in cold. Abusers count on closed rooms. Today the room is open. Olive tried another angle. We've invested so much. She doesn't earn money. She ruins expensive things. There must be consequences that teach value. You bought a rug, Rudy said. I paid attention to a person. I have a lifetime of evidence that attention is the better investment. At 8:30, she brought coffee because she wanted to be useful. Paper on the floor, she tripped. Liquid hit wool. You raised your voice. Minutes later, you sent her into deadly cold. From then to now, 4 hours. He held up 4 fingers. Tell me I'm wrong. No one answered. She did knock, Rose said from the doorway. Every head turned. Rose stood wrapped in Rudy's coat, blanket over her shoulders, color barely back, but voice steadying. I knocked. Olive said I was disturbing your celebration. I sat by the snowbank because my feet hurt, and if I stood, I got dizzy. I waited for someone to decide I mattered more than a rug. You're overwrought, dear, Olive said. Come inside and we'll discuss how to avoid this in the future. In the future, if coffee spills, we blot it. No one goes outside. Randall softened his voice. We can work through this. Your father is making a scene. You don't want the neighbors to get a show, do you? The neighbors should hear how you talk to her, Rudy said. Shame thrives in quiet. Facts thrive in air. A younger guest set down a glass and pushed his chair back. Another looked at the window, where 2 silhouettes stood with arms folded. We will not be spoken to like this, Olive snapped. We hosted, we bought, we planned, we set standards. Standards that trade safety for a spotless weave are not standards. They're pretexts. Love protects. Control punishes. I've seen bridges fail because appearance mattered more than structure. I've never seen a family fail because someone chose kindness over protocol. You're not taking her anywhere, Randall said. She is my wife. She is my daughter and a person with agency. You forfeited your claim when you put her life at risk. We know people, Irving said. You will regret this. There were already consequences when you closed that door, Rudy said. We're just moving them back where they belong. Rose stepped closer to him. I couldn't feel my fingers. I thought I might die. Then I saw my dad and remembered I was someone, not a lesson. The room absorbed it. Olive's mouth opened, then shut. Randall stared as if seeing a person under the habit of compliance. Irving's bravado leaked like air from a puncture. Rudy nodded once to Rose. Show me where your things are. Randall stepped into the path. You are not going upstairs in my home. Move, Rudy said. Randall didn't. Rudy took one step forward. Randall's foot slid back. They climbed. In the hallway, frames lined like witnesses. Rose's room held small islands of her life. A photo of Martha, a book with a ribbon, a coat hanging unused. She gathered what was hers by gift or history. Rudy shouldered the bag. They descended into a room that had lost its gloss. Olive stood at the hearth, hands knotted. Irving blocked the hall by habit, not position. Randall hovered near the door. "We're leaving now," Rudy said. "If you attempt to stop us, call the police for me. Tell them you endangered a household member in conditions that meet the standard of criminal negligence, and that I removed her to safety. Or watch us walk out and learn the one lesson that matters." "What lesson?" Olive demanded. "People are not property. Love does not require fear. Today is the last day you speak to my daughter like she is a burden you must train." "Rose, don't do this," Randall said. "I love you. Love keeps people warm," she said. Rudy opened the door. Cold hit the room with the clean smell of weather. A neighbor across the street lifted a phone, ready to be a witness. The broken latch hung like a numeral, counting the decision already made. They stepped onto the porch. Snow creaked. In front, the truck idled, heat rolling, blanket waiting. A small cluster of neighbors watched without speaking, faces set in the sober way. People look when a truth finally stands up in daylight. Rudy helped Rose into the passenger seat and tucked the blanket again. He turned back once more to the doorway, not to threaten, not to gloat, just to place the last piece where everyone could see it. "If you contact her without respect, you will answer to the law and to me. Practice both." He closed the truck door. Inside, the vents hummed. Rose's hands warmed. She looked at the house where she had nearly learned to forget herself, then at him. Outside, carols drifted thin on the wind, and somewhere a door closed, softer than before. Like a stage after the curtain, the scene changed and the script finally rewritten forever. "Thank you for coming." "Always," he said, and put the truck in gear. Rose's room sat under the eaves like a tucked-away thought, slanted ceiling angling over the bed. The heat vent rattled, but the air felt thin, like the house had decided who deserved warmth. Her things were ordered the way people order themselves when they're trying not to be seen. The childhood teddy bear with a threadbare ear leaned against untouched fashion magazines. Rudy pulled her college duffel from the closet, canvas worn at the seams from dorm moves and first jobs. "Just what matters," he said. "Everything else can be replaced." Rose nodded, moving with a careful rhythm that steadied as she worked. The photo of Martha slid into an outer pocket, then a folding frame with a snapshot of Rose and her dad on a fishing pier. She unplugged her laptop and wrapped the cord with practiced hands. She chose 2 sweaters, jeans, socks, underthings, the kind of inventory you make when you're building a life from zero. She hesitated at the jewelry box. Gold glinted from velvet beds, gifts that declared ownership more than affection. She lifted one necklace, set it down, and closed the lid. "That isn't mine," she said, softly, and Rudy understood. From the top drawer, she took the blue scarf he'd given her minutes ago, tucking it beneath the zipper like a seal. On the nightstand, a small dish held 2 rings. Her engagement ring sparkled under the winter light. The wedding band sat beside it, thin and correct. Rose picked up the band, turned it in her palm, then set it on the dresser's wood grain beside the mirrored tray. She pressed it flat with a finger, as if smoothing a wrinkle from a page she no longer planned to read. She took a breath that seemed to enlarge the room. "Let's go." They reached the stairwell and found the family massed like a dam. Randall had his hands spread, claiming calm he didn't feel. "You can't take my wife," he said. "This is kidnapping. Put the bag down and we'll discuss this like adults." Rudy shifted the duffel on his shoulder. "You forfeited anything you call a right when you put her outdoors to freeze. Step aside." Olive lifted a hand as if conducting a choir. "Vows matter," she said. "Rose, Marriage is for better or worse. You gave your word before witnesses and God. Rose met her gaze. Cherish doesn't mean freeze, she said. Respect doesn't mean obey the lock. You taught me that today. Irving tried the old weight of his tone. Think, girl. Walk out now and you'll be divorced and alone by spring. Men don't come back for trouble. I'll take alone over endangered, she said, and the sentence stood straighter than she did. Randall moved a step closer, palms out. Be reasonable. The rug is destroyed. Emotions were high. I shouldn't have raised my voice. We can fix this with a plan. You like plans. He looked at Rudy. You're an engineer, aren't you? Help her see logistics. Here are the logistics, Rudy said. She's leaving with me. If you obstruct, I call the police and an ambulance, and we document your decision to induce hypothermia as discipline. Then we call your neighbors as witnesses. Step back. The cluster wavered. Olive's eyes darted to the landing window, where a shape moved behind a lace curtain across the street. Randall held for one more second, then slid half a step aside. The duffel brushed his knee as Rudy and Rose passed. At the foyer, the front door gaped where the latch had broken. The winter air reached in like truth, cutting the heat with a clean edge. Family gathered in a crescent behind them, faces set for image, not love. Neighbors stood on porches and shoveled slowly, listening. Rudy kept his voice calm and official, the cadence he used when briefing crews in a storm. We are exiting. You will not touch her. If you believe a crime has occurred, call law enforcement. I'll wait at the curb long enough to give my statement. Otherwise, this ends here. Olive's mouth trembled. We opened our home. We gave her standards. This humiliation. You closed your door, he said. We're opening ours. They crossed the threshold. Snow squeaked under boots and socked feet, the sound small and final. Breath hung white in the air. Rudy helped Rose into the truck, tucked the emergency blanket around her knees, then circled the hood. Randall lunged and slapped the metal once, flat palm loud in the cold. You can't take her. I'll call the police. You'll lose. Rudy stopped at the driver door and looked across the roofline at him. Step away from my daughter. His tone didn't lift, didn't waver. The words landed like ballast. I love you, Rose, Randall said, voice breaking now that the audience had shifted. Don't do this. We can go to counseling. We can rewrite the rules. Love doesn't leave people to shiver outside, Rose said through the cracked window. That's not a rule. That's cruelty with a bow on it. Irving pointed down the street. You'll be back when the world isn't soft on you. Life is hard. Families are strict for a reason. Rudy slid into the seat and started the engine. Heat rolled stronger. The vents hummed. The dashboard glowed. He looked one last time at the house, at the broken latch, at the faces arranging themselves around a story that had just been taken away. This neighborhood saw what mattered, he said. That's enough. The truck eased from the curb. Randall stepped back, hand falling to his side. Neighbors watched the red taillights gather the road. Rose held the blanket to her chin and stretched her fingers toward the vents, skin pinking as sensation returned. On the console, the blue scarf lay coiled like a small promise. She reached for the photo of Martha Rudy kept tucked in the map pocket and set it on her knees. I thought I'd lost myself, she said. You left a ring and kept your name, he said. That's not loss. That's a landmark. They turned the corner at the end of Maple Street. Behind them, the house shrank to a box with lights and a broken promise. Ahead, the road opened clean between plowed banks, thin sun lifting over the ridge. Rudy checked the mirrors, checked Rose's color, checked the fuel, the old habits of a man who keeps things moving. Thank you for coming, she said. She breathed easier, shoulders down. Always, he answered, and the heater hummed like a train finding its line home. Steam from the vents softened the chill that clung to Rose's hands. For the first mile, we said nothing, just breathed and watched the windshield clear. I passed her the travel mug I'd filled at dawn. "Small sips," I said. She tasted, winced at the heat, then tried again. Color crept back into her lips. I slid a granola bar from my pocket, peeled the wrapper when her fingers fumbled, and asked her to try a simple test. "Unlock this, call my number, say your name." She managed it, voice steadier. "Here's our plan for the next 12 hours, I said, keeping my tone even and practical. "When we get home, we set a new phone line in your name. Fresh number, known only to us. We'll add a spoken passcode on the account so no one can impersonate you. Next, email. We change every password, turn on two-step verification, and make recovery options point to the new line. Bank after that. You open an account in your name only at the credit union. Direct deposit when you're ready, separate from anything tied to me. We'll document while it's fresh. Time you were sent outside, temperature, who was present, who said what. I'll print today's weather report and save the page as a PDF. Your confusion, skin color, and the 4-hour duration go into a contemporaneous log with my signature and yours. Then we talk to the police about a report for endangerment and unlawful restraint. If they ask why we didn't call from the driveway, we'll say we prioritized medical safety first. After the report, we'll consult an attorney about a restraining order and safe retrieval of belongings. Before any of that, we pull into urgent care. A clinician needs to check for frostnip or frostbite. They'll look at hands, feet, ears, and nose, test capillary refill, compare sensation left and right. If they're concerned, they'll order warm water rewarming with temperature checks and pain control. If there's deeper injury, we escalate to the hospital. We ask for copies of the visit, note and discharge instructions. That documentation matters if anyone minimizes what happened. After urgent care, home, shower, warm clothes, and soup. She watched the road for a while, processing, then asked, "Will this make things worse for you?" "It will make things clear," I said. "Clarity beats chaos." She smiled at the chirp. "You really are an engineer." "Systems keep people safe," I answered and drove on. At home, we go slow and simple. First, you sleep. Phone on Do Not Disturb except for me. If he calls from an unknown number, we don't answer. If he appears at the door, we don't open it. We call the police and state there's a report pending and a prior incident of exposure to dangerous cold. I'll install a camera doorbell before dinner. Inside, we'll put a small fireproof safe in your room for documents. Birth certificate, social security card, bank info, passwords, and a thumb drive with evidence. Tomorrow morning, we separate your digital life from theirs completely. New Apple ID or Google account, new cloud backups, new calendar. We audit every shared login and revoke access you didn't authorize. We list accounts you might forget. Pharmacy, utilities, streaming, loyalty programs. We change them all. We'll also freeze your credit with the bureaus and add fraud alerts so no one can open accounts in your name. We'll forward your mail to my address and remove access to any shared cloud folders. Social media goes private tonight. No posts about location. We'll contact a local victim advocate for safety planning and court navigation. An attorney will help file for a restraining order and confirm what property you can lawfully retrieve later with police present. There's one more part, I said. My pledge, so there's no confusion. You don't go back, not for apology dinners, not for gift pickups, not for closure. Closure is a story abusers tell to reopen the door. I won't negotiate with cruelty. If he wants to communicate, he can do it through counsel after the report is filed. If anyone from that house contacts you, we don't argue. We save it, log it, and forward it to the file. We answer every attempt with a boundary and a paper trail. If you wobble, I'll remind you of the plan until your voice remembers it alone. Her eyes brightened without spilling. That sounds like rules I can live with. They're house rules, I said. Dignity rules. In this house we speak kindly, We handle anger without ice, and we document harm so truth doesn't have to shout. She flexed her fingers again. The color looked good. The tremor had settled. A mile marker slid by. The emergency blanket slipped to her lap and she breathed deeper, as if warmth had decided to stay. We'll add practical comforts too, I continued. New phone case with a wrist strap so cold, hands don't drop it. A small go bag by your bed with copies of documents, a charger, and cash. A written script for unexpected calls. I won't discuss this. All communications through. Counsel. Then hang up. We'll practice until it comes out calm. She took another sip and set the mug down with steady hands. I'm ready to tell it exactly as it happened, she said. Good. We'll do it once, with dates and times, and keep a copy. Then we'll change the locks on our story. She nodded, looked out at the road unwinding ahead, and let the heater finish what courage had started. When we park, we start with tea, warm water, and paperwork, because safety grows from small, steady steps taken together today. The drive ended at the familiar clapboard house in Greenwood, the one with the porch where Rose had once shelled peas with Martha and giggled at summer lightning. Rudy unlocked the door and flicked on the light. The living room smelled of pine from the small tree he had decorated with simple white lights. Her old room upstairs looked almost untouched by the passing years. The quilt Martha had sewn still stretched across the bed. The dresser top was neat, with a folded blue scarf laid across it like a sentinel. On the nightstand, Rudy had placed the biography of Julia Morgan, pages crisp and waiting. Rose touched the cover as if testing its reality, then sank onto the bed. For the first time in months, maybe longer, she lay back and let her eyes close without dread of the door flying open. Sleep came like water, filling a parched vessel. In the morning, she woke to sunlight on the quilt, the smell of coffee drifting up the stairs, and the knowledge that no lock stood between her and warmth. Healing required structure. Rudy drove her to an intake appointment with a therapist who specialized in coercive control. Once a month at first, then more often as Rose saw the value in untangling her story. The counselor gave her words for what had happened: gaslighting, financial control, isolation, endangerment. Naming the tactics removed some of their power. Rose also began brushing up her professional skills. She found her old textbooks and downloaded refresher modules in marketing. She applied for small jobs first, freelance work that allowed her to build a new portfolio without pressure. At the local community center, she volunteered to help a nonprofit redesign their donor materials. She shifted their approach from dense charts to personal narratives about lives changed, and donations doubled within a month. For Rose, it wasn't just work. It was proof that she had something valuable to give the world, something no critic could erase. She began to notice confidence returning in her body language. She made eye contact again. She caught herself humming while folding laundry, a habit that had disappeared during marriage. At Rudy's kitchen table, she drafted resumes that highlighted her creative strengths, not just technical skills. He listened as she practiced answers for interviews, reminding her to tell stories rather than recite statistics. Every time she did, her voice grew steadier. She stopped apologizing before offering ideas. Small victories accumulated, forming a foundation. Within 6 months, Rose landed a job with a mid-sized marketing firm in Boston. They valued her nonprofit project and her perspective on emotional storytelling. She signed her emails Rose Hudson, reclaiming the name she had nearly abandoned. The firm quickly noticed her impact, especially when one of her campaigns increased donor engagement by 40%. By her first year, supervisors were discussing a promotion track. The company culture was collaborative, not controlling, and she thrived in it. Rudy drove up once a month for lunch, sometimes bringing pie, sometimes just his presence. They would sit by the harbor, talk about projects, and share updates like equals. Her apartment was modest, but entirely her own. Every object was chosen with intention. A chair she liked, a rug she picked, pictures she framed. On the kitchen windowsill sat a Christmas cactus. Rose had bought it on impulse one spring afternoon. It bloomed twice that year, pink flowers bursting against winter gray. Each bloom felt like a small triumph, a sign that life could thrive again when given the right conditions. She watered it carefully, proud that it flourished under her care. Rudy noticed it on his visits and smiled, thinking of Martha's green thumb and her belief that plants mirrored the people who tended them. As seasons turned, Rose no longer defined herself by what she had endured, but by what she was building. She spoke with authority at work, mentored junior staff, and began dreaming of leadership roles. The memories of freezing outside in pajamas had not vanished, but they no longer defined her. Instead, they fueled her commitment to ensuring others never felt that powerless. She occasionally shared her experience in therapy groups, her voice no longer breaking when she described the snowbank or the locked door. Listeners leaned forward, hearing in her words the possibility of their own escape. For Rudy, watching Rose stand tall was the purest reward. He saw Martha's determination in her eyes, felt pride every time she ordered lunch confidently or paid with her own credit card. On their second Christmas back together, Rose cooked dinner in his kitchen, trying out a new recipe and laughing when it didn't turn out perfectly. No one shouted. No one locked doors. They ate together and then looked out at the snow falling softly on Greenwood, the house warm with peace. Rose set the Julia Morgan book on the mantel, spine bent from rereading, a symbol of how design and resilience could remake a life. The past had left marks, but the future was hers. Her name, her work, her apartment, her cactus, her voice, all parts of a rebuilt life that no one could take. And for Rudy, sitting across from her during their monthly lunches, pride replaced guilt. His daughter had walked back into herself, and he had the privilege of watching her bloom. Family reshaped itself slowly, but with intention. Rose stopped waiting for invitations from people who measured her worth by obedience. Instead, she opened her door to those who had shown care without condition. Her co-workers became friends who laughed easily around her table. Neighbors in her Boston building invited her to potlucks, where everyone brought whatever they could. No competition, no judgment. At Thanksgiving, she chose to cook with Rudy, not for anyone's approval, but for the comfort of shared effort. They roasted a modest turkey, mashed potatoes, and baked Martha's apple pie. The crust imperfect, but loved. At Christmas, Rose declined every overture from the Morrisons. Instead, she accepted a colleague's invitation to join their family celebration, where she was welcomed as if she had always belonged. That night, Rudy called and heard joy in her voice, not the brittle cheer she once used to mask pain. Family, she realized, was defined not by obligation, but by presence. It meant choosing to gather with those who made room at the table, not those who locked doors. It meant knowing that care was measured in warmth, not in punishment, disguised as tradition. For Rudy, resolution came in the shape of a credo. He had once hesitated when Rose begged for help, had let a contract outweigh his daughter's plea. That mistake carved itself deep, but it also taught him the line he would never cross again. Love doesn't leave you in the snow, he told himself. Respect is a verb, proven in actions, not just claimed in speeches. And presence is the currency of care. I will arrive when needed, without excuses. He carried that credo like a conductor's schedule, something to be checked against every choice. Watching Rose thrive confirmed its truth. She had reclaimed her name, her work, her independence, and he had stood beside her when she did. Quiet pride replaced regret. He imagined Martha at his side, nodding approval, eyes soft with the knowledge that their daughter was safe. The symbols aligned. On the dresser in Westbridge, a wedding ring lay abandoned on wood grain, testimony to a life discarded. On the desk in Boston, a brass nameplate gleamed, Rose Hudson. Between those markers stretched the distance between captivity and dignity. Rose had chosen her name, her life, her future. Rudy had chosen to act, not delay. Together, they wrote a definition of family that no storm, no control, no cruel voice could erase. And as snow fell again the next December, both knew that dignity was not just a resolution, but a way of living, carried forward in every warm room they entered, together or apart. If Rose's journey moved you, take a moment to let us know. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your own experience in the comments. Have you ever seen control disguised as tradition, where rules and rituals were used to diminish instead of uplift? What boundary changed everything for you, the moment you decided respect meant action, not performance? Your story may help someone else find the courage to draw their line, just as Rose did when she stepped away from cruelty and claimed her name again. Every comment becomes part of a larger community of people refusing to confuse discipline with love or silence with peace. And don't stop here. The next story will take us into another holiday season where a hidden betrayal tries to pass as normal. This time, the twist comes from an unexpected ally who refuses to let manipulation have the last word. Tap the box on the left and join us.